one of the great traditions of the Hall of Fame is the gentleman that everybody has talked about tonight, closing the night. And when I started at Felician, which is now a long time ago, in 1996, as an assistant coach, 2 years go by, and I'm lucky enough to be made full-time in the athletic department, and one of my roles was sports information. And I was the coach. And that's what I wanted to do. That's been my life's dream, my life's work. I value being called a father. I value being called a husband, but I also really value being called a coach. So when I got promoted to being full-time, one of the jobs that was added to my plate was being sports information director. And one of the people that I met very early on was a guy who was an assistant SID at Southern Connecticut University. Many of you don't know this, but when Felician started athletics, we were an NAIA school. Many people don't know what that is. That's another governing body with the NCAA. 2 years into our move into athletics, we became an NCAA provisional member of Division II, and we were actually a member of the New England Collegiate Conference for 1 year. Not even a full year, half a year, because during the year, as Dan Mara would know, the conference was going to fold. But at that time, that same assistant SID from Southern Connecticut was the SID for the New England Collegiate Conference, and that person was Mark Mentone. So Mark Mentone, being that guy, would get phone calls from me about how to be an SID and what I would need to do, posting stories and things like that, which I had no idea what I was doing. And that became the beginning of a 24-year friendship. So now you fast forward, Mark leaves Southern Connecticut and becomes the SID at NJIT. Not only does he become the SID at New Jersey Institute of Technology, he also becomes the SID of the Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference. And again, I enlist the help of Mark. Things happen in both of our lives. I'm lucky enough to become the athletic director at Felician, and Mark needs a job. And here we are today. So, as an athletic director, you talk about what are your most memorable moments, what are your best hires, what are some of your best moments. I hired a lot of great people. I've worked with a lot of great people. But arguably the best hire I ever made, other than myself as the golf coach, was Mark Mentone as the SID. So you're going to have to bear with him for the next few minutes, because it's going to get a little emotional. And he's got every right to come up here and let it all fly, because he's earned this over 16 years of being the voice of Felician athletics and being the conscience, of Felician athletics. Not just telling the story, but ingraining Felician athletics in all of us and in everything that we do. So, this is his moment. The Sports Information Director of Felician University, Mr. Mark Mentone.
First of all, I assume there's a betting pool about when the first tears would come, so if you've got 30 seconds, go ahead and collect. Secondly, still employed by Felician for another 24 hours or so. So Samantha, just so you know, I already rescheduled the golf media day for 10 o'clock because I know Matt's still here, so we took care of that, don't worry about that. JR, you still don't listen to me? We have Hall of Famers here tonight. You recognize Mickey Zidoni. I asked you 3 times, so I'll take care of that. There were 3 Hall of Famers tonight. Rob Albano did the Irish goodbye. John Brennan is here, and the Mick is here.
Good job, Robert.
I just want, I'm going to get to what I want to say, but I just want to point out that in my profession, things like last night's video and that standing ovation you gave me just don't happen to SIDs. I want you to clearly understand that I understand how special that is. And I clearly understand what I'm walking away from, and these are the moments I'll miss. The 70-hour weeks, the 6th day, and the waiting for the second game of Sunday baseball doubleheaders to finish, maybe not so much. I will miss this dearly, and I understand completely what I'm giving up. So, let's get into it. As JR mentioned, I was part of the founding of this Hall of Fame, and I was the original chairman, and I'm very proud to see what it's turned into. It's also the traditional kickoff for homecoming weekend. Very happy about that. As JR also mentioned, without me knowing it, the part of the tradition of the Hall of Fame banquet apparently became this speech. I just thought that the banquet needed a closing, and as the chairman for the first 7 years, I should probably take care of that. But eventually people started saying, yeah, I was looking forward to that every year. So I didn't understand it, but until a couple of years ago, it was actually during the lockdowns, Brendan Bonnicum got promoted to a full-time position in our department. As part of that promotion, he was put in charge of this event. And the first thing he said to me was, I said this last year, a lot of you weren't here last year. The first thing he said to me was, I will do this, but you are still making the speech at the end. So here I am. Now this is where I usually, the next thing I usually say is that I know it's late, I know it's been a long night, I know homecoming is coming up, I know a lot of you want to get home. Tonight's a little different. So, as they say in Congress, I'd like to reclaim a little bit of my time. I'm reminded of Devon Young. A lot of you may know who Devon Young is, and I don't know if JC and Nas are still here. No offense meant, but I'm going to say this clearly and directly. Devon Young is the greatest basketball player Felician's ever had. So about 5 years ago, Devon Young stood at this podium, and he said, very politely and sweetly, he said, I hope you'll be patient with me tonight. I have a lot to say, and I may never get this chance again. That's about how I feel right now. First, as everybody else has done, there's some thank yous that need to go out, and the first one needs to be JR DiNallo. As I've said before, JR threw me a lifeline, to use the pop culture phrase. You know, 16 years ago, like he said, I needed a job, Felician had one. And that's how this started, very humble beginnings. Someone who's played a very large role in my professional development is Commissioner Merrill. And when I say he's dedicated to this conference, you know, we've varied between maybe 10 to 14 schools in this conference. He is now 9 for 9 attending this event. There aren't too many of us left, even attached to Felician, that can say that. He's 9 for 9. Dan, I appreciate everything you've done for me throughout my career. And it's still going on, because Dan, just a couple hours ago, Dan got a reference call for me for my next show. So, he's still doing me a solid. Andrew, thank you for lying to me last night about that video. I had no idea that was coming. A lot of our student athletes that were in that video at the volleyball match are here tonight. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything you guys said in that video, and I can't believe it never leaked. There are no secrets at Felician, but somehow none of you let me know that was coming. Thank you. And like I said, Brendan, for helping this event thrive, and for taking the ball and running with it, and as you can see, making it bigger and better than ever. And as I always say to both JR and Andrew, thank you for allowing me to be myself for 16 years. However, this night is always about the honorees. And when I think about tonight's 3 honorees, I think about how they benefited from experience, both their own and from the people around them. I did research for this speech, by the way, so here comes some. There was a scientist and educator named Randy Couch that had a two-part quote about experience. And the first thing he said was, experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. Now that sounds cynical, but if you think about it, it's probably true. However, he went on to add that experience is often the most valuable thing that an individual has to offer. And it's my wish, as I depart Felician this weekend, that Felician University, top to bottom, keeps that second part in mind. Because I'm not so sure if the current Felician University values experience. Hey, they can't find me, I already quit. Marcos Torres and I arrived at Felician at about the same time. It was the fall of 2006. And Marcos, I don't know if you remember this, but we both heard a great deal about a guy named Mike Ruth. I didn't see Mike play for Felician. He graduated the year before I got there, obviously, same with you. But you may remember Mike was a catcher. You also may remember that you were a catcher. And Mike had just gotten done, not rewriting, but basically was the main author of the Felician record books. And by the time baseball season, preseason came around, it was pretty clear to me, I'm not sure if it was made clear to you, that you were going to be the starting catcher as a freshman. And you were going to replace Mike Ruth. Now, I like Mike Ruth. I got to meet him later on. He's in this Hall of Fame. He's a great guy. I even got to induct him in the Hall of Fame because Coach Lange came up with a back injury that night somehow. So at the last minute, I inducted Mike Ruth into the Hall of Fame. I guess that was another night you looked like hell, huh?
Clearly there's more than one. Yeah.
I got 24 hours left, man. Well, Coach Lange went through with those plans. And if I remember right, it was kind of an adjustment period for you, but you benefited from that experience. And by mid-April, the talent was obvious. As I remember, I did the research. By the end of the year, you were hitting 301. And the next 3 years, you know, as they say, the rest is history. And by the end of your fourth season, you broke the record for all-time hits, a record once held by Mike Ruth. It came full circle. Now, here's a bit of trivia for you guys. Both Marcos and James are the second athletes from their high school in the Felician Hall of Fame. Now, for James, pretty local, Quantic Township. He followed Rob Albano here, as I mentioned. Marcos is from Miami, Florida, and yet he's a second member of his high school in our Hall of Fame.
I know the answer.
He followed a guy. He followed a guy named Frank Quintana. He was a freshman Frank's senior year. So it's just interesting that South Miami High School has put two guys in the Felician Athletics Hall of Fame. So Jerry, does anyone else at Heavy Hudson need to know about? Maybe you want to let us know. Either Jerry, yeah. This audience, Coach Brennan mentioned it already, but this audience trends young. However, I hope there's a lot of people that know the name Mickey Mantle here. There's a lot of baseball fans here. The original Mick. Mickey Mantle was both my parents' favorite baseball player. And it's going to sound odd, but there's a lot of parallels between the career of Mickey Mantle and the Felician career of James Vanderbilt, believe it or not. Mickey Mantle's rookie year, he was playing in the World Series, he was chasing a fly ball, and he caught his foot in a drain. Went down like he got shot. Now, Mickey Mantle was still a pretty good ball player. His career was never quite the same, he never ran quite the same, but he ended up being a Hall of Famer. As you've heard tonight, James Vanderbilt had a pretty good start to his career. Won the conference as a freshman. First meeting his sophomore year, steps in a hole. James Vanderbilt is now a Hall of Famer too. I just found the parallels pretty interesting. James Vanderwheels is a Hall of Famer because of what happened both before and after he stepped into that bowl. And the rest of his career, he got by not only on his talent, but on his toughness, his loyalty, and his experience, as we mentioned before. He drew on what he learned from his high school coach and from the guidance of his college coaches, and that made James Vanderwheels a Hall of Famer. Now, there's a lot of people at Felician that have their favorite Jerry Vaslow stories. JR kind of stole my thunder on Jess. Jerry married a Caldwell graduate where we finally forgave him tonight and let him in the Hall of Fame anyway. At CACC they call it a mixed marriage. They can't fire me. But let me tell you about Jerry Vaslow, the person, and how obvious his tremendous upbringing was. I remember spending a lot of days, especially Jerry's junior year, next to Chief Vaslow, and all those no decisions that year, and all those high pitch counts because we didn't make plays and all that fun stuff. But here's this story I researched when Jerry got another award. He was named to the Asbury Park Press All-Decade Team, and I came across this story by accident. But let's play a little bit of What Would You Do? Okay? It's the last game of your high school career. You're in the state finals. Now, Jerry's playing center field because he pitched the game before. Now, I heard Jerry was a pretty good hitter in high school, is that true? So they put him in the lineup in center field. His team, I guess, is the lower seed, so you're the visiting team. His team loses the game on a walk-off hit. The walk-off hit goes over Jerry's head in center field. Okay? Your career just ended in the state finals. What would you do? You'd probably throw your gloves, start crying, I don't know. You're 18 years old. Well, here's what Jerry did. Jerry turned around, jogged to get the ball, and gave it to the kid that hit it. Just because he thought he might whine. Kid on the other team that just beat him. How many of us at 18 years old would have done that? Probably not me. But that tells you the kind of kid that Felician was getting. Not the kind of ball player, the kind of person. But there's also a lot to Jerry's story that applies to, there's still a lot of our student athletes here today. I see that our current student athletes. Thank you for sticking it out. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to learn from Jerry's story. Do you know what, actually, let me back up. Marco Shore, as I said, started as a freshman, hit 301. We've all heard about James Vanderwheels' freshman year. Let me tell you about Jerry Vaslow's freshman year. He pitched 3 innings, and he played in 5 other games as a late inning defensive replacement at first base. The man pitched in the major leagues. That was his freshman year of college.
Bad coaching.
His sophomore year, I think I wrote it down. He pitched 19 innings with an ERA almost 6. Okay? Again, as I might have mentioned, he pitched in the major leagues. So after those first 2 years, did he tell the Langers they didn't know what the hell they were doing?
Probably.
You told me no. Did he ask for his release? They didn't have the transfer portal back then. Did he ask for his release? No, he worked on it and got better. There's no, and let me tell you, in 26 years in college athletics, for a college freshman, there's a lot more Jerry Vaslow than there are James Vanderwheels. But the difference is he didn't quit. He didn't blame anybody else. And you've seen the results. So there's a lot to learn for our current athletes to teach our younger current athletes about Jerry's story. Jerry, I also want to say that as a publicist, well, for another 24 hours, I was so proud to watch your interview skills develop as your pitching skills developed. You never forgot where you came from, and you gave a small school in New Jersey a reason to puff out your chest, and I was very proud to watch that happen. Now, obviously, having said all that, it brings me to the issue that that everybody's talked about tonight. It's not a secret anymore, which is that this is the last time I will address you as an employee of Felician University. Now, in recent times, I've had the honor of corresponding with several alumni of Felician like I have tonight. And the word that comes off so often, I think Jeff used it tonight, I know James used it, is family. And I've never started a family of my own, so I feel so privileged to have been accepted as an honorary member of the Felician family. And for the first half of my tenure here, I was able to tell the stories of Marcos, of James, of Jerry, and of all their peers. I shared your successes. I like to think I helped uplift you through your failures, because there were failures and that's part of life. Now make no mistake, tonight is their night. Tonight's not about me. No publicist wants any night to be about them. But it's very important that tonight's not the last night. So I challenge Andrew, Brendan, JR, don't let this die. This Hall of Fame now means a great deal to a lot of people. There's a lot of people watching that want to know if their family member, their friend, their teammate is going to make it in. Don't use my departure as an excuse to stop this from happening. I've heard so many kind words over the last few weeks once I announced I was leaving Felician. And I think it's very difficult to measure an impact when you have a job like mine. Again, there's a lot of baseball fans in the room. I'm sure many of you have seen Field of Dreams. Doc Graham said it. Sometimes you don't recognize those important moments of your life while they're happening. I think that's true in my case. I had no idea an SID to have anywhere near the impact that some of you had told me I had. It's still hard to believe. So here's what I want to leave you with. One more Hall of Famer. Very important person in baseball history and social history that I hope you've heard of. Jackie Robinson. Because as athletes, coaches, and support staff, it's very easy to lose sight of the idea that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. But as Jackie Robinson summed up, a life is not important except for the impact that it has on other lives. That's it. That's why we're all here. Marcos, James, Jerry, thank you for allowing me to impact your life. And to everybody in the room, thank you for letting me be a part of the Felician family.